Welcome back to the deep dive. We spend so much time on clinical breakthroughs, on new techniques, but today we're going deep on something else.
hmm
The uh, the administrative bedrock, the stuff that actually keeps therapy clinics running.
What plumbing?
Exactly. We are talking about the critical and, let's be honest, very complex world of credential management for SLP, OT, and PT practices. Okay, let's unpack this. Because managing a clinic, a successful one, isn't just about care.
Not at all.
It's about getting paid for that care, and that all hinges on mastering two huge recurring tasks: re-credentialing and revalidation.
And they sound like pure jargon.
They do. It sounds so dense, but the reality is if you miss a single one of these deadlines, your revenue just freezes. So for this, we've synthesized a bunch of crucial guides and articles to really turn this maze into a clear path.
And that clarity is everything.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just about, profit. It's
Yeah.
about protecting the whole practice.
Right.
The real challenge for anyone running a clinic is that they're dealing with what we call a system of overlapping clocks.
Overlapping clocks. I like that.
Yeah. You have state clocks ticking, federal clocks ticking, and then dozens of private payer clocks.
Yeah.
All at the same time, all on different schedules. So our mission today is to turn that mess into a single, manageable, ongoing process for you.
So let's start at the very beginning, because this seems to be where the biggest confusion is. The words themselves. Re-credentialing, revalidation, are they the same thing?
They are absolutely not the same thing. And getting that split right is, it's step one for operational safety. If you mix these up, you're already in trouble. So first, let's take re-credentialing.
Okay.
Think of this as renewing your license to operate with the commercial guys.
So the insurance companies.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
renewing a provider status with all your private payers, your United Healthcares, your Aetnas, your Cignas. The goal is just to prove you still meet their standard.
And the timing on that is all over the place, right? It's not one set schedule.
It's totally inconsistent. That's what makes it so tough. The frequency is set by each individual insurer. So yeah, it's usually on a cycle of every 2 to 3 years. But that inconsistency is a huge headache because one payer might be due in March and another in October, even if you sign up on the same day. Then you have the other system, revalidation.
And this is the government one.
This is the government one. It's strictly for the periodic renewal of your government enrollment. So we're talking Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah.
And the stakes here, they could be much, much higher.
How so?
Well, failing to re-credentialed with a private payer means you're dropped from that one network. It hurts, but you survive.
Okay.
Failing to revalidate, though, can be catastrophic. Your reimbursements can be frozen. Or worse, your billing privileges for the entire government program can just be deactivated until you fix it.
That's a huge difference. One is like losing a customer. The other is like getting your business license suspended.
That's a great way to put it.
What's fascinating here is we're dealing with two completely separate systems, different rules, different stakes, and you have to be a master of both. But tell me about the government side again. The timelines there are at least a little more predictable, aren't they?
They are, which helps. It gives you a fixed schedule to plan around. For your standard Medicare providers, which is most SOP, OT, and PT clinics CMS, requires you to revalidate every 5 years.
5 years.
That's your main government clock.
5 years feels like a really long time. Isn't that a danger in itself? You could get that notice, put it in a drawer, and then completely forget about it for like 58 months.
That is the exact operational trap we want to help you avoid.
Right.
And we'll get to this 6-month prep window in a bit, but yes, the long cycle makes your internal tracking absolutely critical. Now, there is a catch.
Uh-oh.
If your clinic also bills for durable medical equipment DMPOS, that cycle is much shorter. It's every 3 years.
Oh, interesting nuance. So you could have two different federal clocks running in the same clinic? Yeah.
You absolutely could. And then finally, your state Medicaid agencies, they usually follow the federal lead. So that's also revalidation every 5 years.
So you've got this rolling set of 5-year and 3-year government deadlines running right next to those completely random 2 to 3 year private payer contracts.
And now you see the puzzle.
Which brings us to the operational side of it. We've defined these long cycles, 3 years, 5 years, but a clinic manager can't just put a reminder on their calendar for 2028 and call it a day.
No, absolutely not. Credential management has to be an ongoing, almost continuous process.
Like a quality assurance cycle.
Exactly. We need to shift your focus from renewal date to annual workflow.
Mhm.
Because even if a renewal is years away, certain things have to be updated yearly or even quarterly for it to all work.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the clock is always running on so many fronts, you need a rock-solid annual checklist so nothing falls through the cracks. What are, say, the top 3 things that have to be on that list every single year?
Okay, top three. Number one is the most critical for, well, for legal practice and safety. State licenses and continuing education.
Right.
A therapist has to renew their state license, and that cycle could be 1, 2, or 3 years, depending on the state. And crucially, most states require CEs for that renewal.
So the clinic's job isn't just tracking the license date, it's also tracking if the therapist actually did their 30 hours or 40 hours or whatever it is. That sounds like a nightmare to enforce.
It's a massive coordination lift. You're trying to get proof from busy clinicians.
Yeah.
And if the clinic isn't on top of it and a therapist misses that deadline, the license lapses.
And they can't see patients.
They cannot legally treat patients. The liability is huge. We've seen clinics lose weeks of revenue over one missed CE deadline for one provider.
Terrifying. Okay, what's number 2 on the annual list?
Number 2 is your Medicare and Medicaid enrollment tracking. Even though revalidation is 5 years away, you need a central log of those due dates. And you start your prep, your internal prep, every single year.
So what does that mean, internal prep?
Confirming addresses are correct, checking ownership details, making sure your provider list is current. You're basically getting everything ready for when that notice from CMS finally shows up.
So you're staging the documents every year, so you're not scrambling for something that's like 4 years old when the time comes.
Precisely. And then number 3, your insurance network status or your private payer audit.
Okay.
Every year, you have to audit all your private contracts. You confirm when each one is up for re-credentialing, who is on what contract, and you make sure that payer has the latest copies of everything, licenses, liability insurance. You submit those applications 6 months ahead of time. Always.
That's a perfect transition. Let's move from the checklist to the actual tools. You can't manage all these dates with sticky notes. The sources we looked at highlight 2 really specialized systems. Let's start with the private payer one, CAQH.
Right, CAQH. It stands for the Council for Affordable Quality Healthcare, but everyone just calls it CAQH.
And what is it?
So their system is called CAQH ProView. Think of it like a central resume for the entire private healthcare industry. Instead of sending your info to 50 different payers 50 times, you upload it once to CAQH, and they all pull from there.
But here's the detail that seems to get everyone. It's not a set it and forget it system.
Not even close. This is the crucial part that trips up so many clinics. Providers have to actively attest to their data. Basically, log in and confirm it's all still correct, at least quarterly.
Quarterly, not annually.
Quarterly, 4 times a year. If you don't do this, your data gets stale in the eyes of the payers, and when they go to re-credential you, they'll just reject it. It slows the whole process down to a crawl.
So as a manager, I have to chase my clinicians 4 times a year just to log in and click a button.
You do. It's an administrative pain, but it is absolutely mandatory. And that's totally different from the government system, which uses its own separate database.
And that one is PCOS.
Correct. PCOS, the Provider Enrollment Chain and Ownership System. This is the platform for everything Medicare. It's where you handle your enrollment and your 5-year revalidation.
So there are 2 mandatory platforms, CAQH for your private life, PCOS for your government life.
Exactly. It just reflects that fundamental split in U.S. healthcare. You can't use your LinkedIn profile for your tax filings. It's that same level of separation.
I get it now.
And beyond those 2 big systems, there are 3 last mandatory compliance checks. Think of them as safety nets.
Okay.
First, your clinic's liability insurance must be renewed annually. And all provider professional certifications have to be current. That's just basic risk management. Second is the federal exclusion check. This is the one that gets overlooked in the daily chaos, but the penalties are huge.
Wait, what is that? The OIG check?
Yeah, the OIG exclusion list. The Office of Inspector General keeps a list of people and companies who are banned from federal programs, usually for things like fraud or abuse.
You have to check it.
You have to check that none of your therapists are on that list. Because if you hire someone who is, even by accident, and you bill Medicare for their work, your clinic could face massive fines, even criminal charges. It's a continuous check you have to do. And the last one sounds small, but it's critical. Making sure all your national provider identifiers, your NPIs, are active and have the right address. If an NPI is flagged, every single claim tied to it gets rejected.
Instantly.
Instantly.
Okay, that covers the systems and the safety nets. Let's talk about practical logistics, the timing. If I'm hearing all these overlapping deadlines, quarterly, annual, 2, 3, 5 years, how far ahead do I actually need to start the big renewals?
The consensus is really clear on this one.
Hmm.
Start your preparation about 6 months before the deadline.
6 months. That feels like a lot.
It feels like a lot, but it is not a suggestion. It is a hard rule.
Why so long?
Two reasons: internal chaos and external bureaucracy. Internally, you need months just to gather everything. Get the CE certificates from your therapists, update insurance, confirm addresses. Externally, the payers and the government, they move very slowly.
Glacially.
Right. So if you submit 3 months out and they find one missing document 2 months later, you're suddenly 1 month from the deadline with absolutely no wiggle room.
And you said earlier that CMS only sends those revalidation notices 3 or 4 months out, so if you wait for that official letter...
You're already 2 or 3 months behind schedule.
Wow.
You cannot treat that letter as the starting gun. It's the halfway point.
Yeah.
You have to start planning internally way before you hear from them.
Let's talk resources. Every clinic manager is going to ask this. Does this take a whole team?
The good news is no, not usually a whole team. Our sources suggest that one dedicated person, a really well-trained administrator or a specialist, can handle it for the whole clinic.
But the key there has to be the tools they use, right? You can't just use an Excel sheet for a 5-year deadline, can you?
That's the catch. They have to use a dedicated shared tracker. A spreadsheet can work for a small clinic, maybe, but specialized software is often better because it automates those reminders. Relying on one person's memory for a 5-year cycle is just, it's too risky.
Let's circle back to the stakes one last time, just to really drive this home. We said it protects revenue, but what's the most immediate, non-negotiable consequence of messing this up?
It all comes back to the therapist's license. The most severe consequence is very simple. If a therapist's license lapses, they must stop seeing patients immediately.
Immediately, like they have to walk out of a session.
They have to. They are no longer legally allowed to practice. The clinic has to cancel all their appointments right away. The financial hit is instant, and on the back end, the insurers will get notified and drop that provider from their networks. You get a flood of claim denials you can't fight.
Before we wrap up, I have to ask about the exception. What about clinics that are all cash? Or maybe they only take private insurance. If I don't bill Medicare or Medicaid, can I ignore all the government stuff?
It definitely simplifies your life, but the main burden is still there. If you aren't enrolled in government programs, then yes, you can skip CMS and Medicaid revalidation. You don't need to worry about PICOs.
Yeah.
But, and it's a huge but, you absolutely must still keep up with your state licenses, your CE requirements, and every single one of your private payer credentials. The private payers and the state boards, their clocks are still ticking, regardless of what you do with the government.
Yeah.
So we tie this all together. The success of a therapy clinic really depends on managing these incredibly complex overlapping cycles. You're juggling state CEs, quarterly CAQH attestations, 2 to 3 year private re-credentialing, and 5-year government revalidations. Tracking all of that isn't optional. It's the absolute foundation of your revenue.
So what does this all mean? It means credential management is not just paperwork. It's revenue insurance. It's the constant, necessary work that protects your clinic so that the real work, patient care, can actually happen. You know, the real lesson here is just the sheer depth of this rolling administrative burden. All this complexity, it comes from having 3 totally separate entities setting your deadlines: state licensing boards, private insurance companies, and the federal government. And since you need that 6-month lead time, the reality for every manager is that next year's compliance starts today. You're always gathering info, always updating something, always prepping for a deadline that's still a year or more away. That constant proactive vigilance, that's the true cost of running a successful therapy clinic.